This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A judge wants the city to continue negotiating with demonstrators at Brady Road landfill. The two sides were back in court today over Winnipeg's request for an injunction to end a blockade of the facility's main entrance. It was in response to Manitoba's decision against a search of a different landfill for the remains of two women. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, tensions have been rising across the city ever since.
Between 40 and 50 people surrounded the Winnipeg home of 28-year-old Kyle Klochko.
Take care of your own way.
He's the man who dumped mulch on a red dress mural Sunday at a blockade of a city landfill. Police officers stood between the crowd and Klochko's place. This after a rock was thrown through a window, resulting in a mischief charge against a 19-year-old man. A sign of growing tensions amid the more than week-long protest by people who want landfills searched.
At Camp Morgan, we're peaceful people. We are upset about what that individual did. He should be brought to court for his actions, not necessarily by the citizens of Winnipeg to have to do that.
Klochko says he was upset he didn't have somewhere to dump his material. He apologized for his actions.
That's all they were asking for, which was fair. They want an apology for disrespecting these women, and that's understandable.
His apology was just complete BS. Like, he had no meaning behind it at all. He just wanted us to leave.
It comes as the city seeks an injunction to end the blockade of the Brady Road landfill due to potential concerns over safety and environmental impacts. But a lawyer for some of the people blocking it says the request should only be considered after they're given more time to prepare. A request now being considered by Justice Sheldon Lanchberry.
I think the right of protest is an important right for my clients, and they're exercising that.
Protesters and family members of Morgan Harris want a search for her remains and those of Mercedes Myron. It's believed they were transported to the privately owned Prairie Green landfill north of Winnipeg after they were killed. The province decided against a search of the landfill. Ottawa says it would be willing to support one but needs the province involved. Families have blocked one of the roads into the Brady landfill. Justice Lanchberry asked the two sides if they could negotiate an agreement that wouldn't require an injunction. He suggested an arrangement that would allow protesters to remain at the site without blocking traffic while handing out materials to passing motorists on the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
The last thing we want is having to remove anybody or remove the blockade. We'd really like to do everything we can to try and find a compromise here.
Court continues on Friday. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, before court heard arguments over the injunction, the issue of searching the landfill came up at City Hall. One councillor wanted the city to declare its support for the search. But as CBC's Cameron McLean tells us, the motion failed to make it onto the agenda.
An effort to get council to debate support for the landfill search split council in half. Daniel McIntyre councillor Cindy Gilroy brought forward the motion. It would have asked the federal and provincial governments to fund the search of the Prairie Green landfill. But Gilroy needed support from 2/3 of council to get the motion on the agenda. In the end, 8 voted in favor while 8 voted against, meaning the effort failed.
It's disappointing that we couldn't debate it today. I think, right now that is what everyone's concerned about, and being able to deal with this motion right now at Prairie Green would be ideal, considering where we are seeing protests happen at Brady Landfill.
Mayor Scott Gillingham was among the council members who voted in opposition. He says the feds and the province need to get on the same page for the sake of the families.
Ultimately, the decision on Prairie Green landfill, which is a landfill outside the city of Winnipeg, I've said all along that the decision is really up to the federal and provincial governments.
Transcona councillor Russ Wyatt criticized Premier Heather Stephenson's decision not to fund the search, citing safety concerns.
We need to start the healing process. We don't need to be pointing fingers. We need to start working together, and this is not the way to do it. The Premier's decision was heartless, callous. She has to reconsider what she's done here.
This was the last meeting before the summer break, but it's not the end for Gilroy's motion. It will be picked up again at the next Executive Policy Committee meeting in September. By then, Mayor Gillingham hopes the federal and provincial governments can come to some agreement. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Staying with news from City Hall, Councillor John Orlico broke his silence today on a legal decision that found he directed city planners to hold up a residential development. As CBC's Bartley Kivez reports, Orlico says statements made about him are false.
River Heights Fort Garry Councillor John Orlico wants to clear his name.
I do know in my heart that I did not try to stymie this application.
The application in question is an effort to convert this empty plot of land in Fort Garry's Parker lands into a residential development called Fulton Grove. Last week, Manitoba's Court of King's Bench ruled city planners improperly impeded the development at Orlico's behest. In the decision, Justice Shauna McCarthy said the impetus and motivation for this deliberate interference with the plaintiff's applications were primarily the wishes and demands of the area councillor and the desire of some public servants to accommodate those wishes. Orlico calls that false and says because he wasn't a defendant in the lawsuit, he had no opportunity to defend himself in court.
Somebody should have said, you know, this is the stuff they're saying to you in the courthouse. And then I may have had my own lawyer there. I may have been able to contest some of those things, but that was never done.
Winnipeg's mayor was asked whether he believes Orlico.
Councillor Orlico, I think, does really good work. He's dedicated to his residents. He's dedicated to the community.
Meanwhile, Transcona Councillor Russ Wyatt wants to know whether Winnipeg will take any action against one of the two planners who still works for the city.
I'd like to know if there's going to be any kind of consequences in terms of the staff who chose to ignore core planning policies and principles.
The city hasn't decided whether to appeal the decision, which comes with a $5 million award to Marquis. Orlico, meanwhile, says the last week has been tough.
I do believe in ethics, and so getting some pretty horrible emails from people that have decided that here's a person that's never actually had an opportunity to respond to any of this, and all of a sudden I'm being accused of doing things that I never did.
I reached out to Andrew Marquis, and he said he has no comment about Councillor Orlico, saying he finds the judge's statements about him false. Bartley Kivez, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A former Winnipeg High School football coach and teacher has pleaded guilty to 11 charges related to sexual abuse of minors. Kelsey McKay was arrested in April 2022. He was charged with a total of 30 offenses related to the sexual exploitation of minors while he worked as a teacher and coached football at Vincent Massey Collegiate and Churchill High School. At a hearing this morning, McKay pleaded guilty to 9 counts of sexual assault and 2 amended charges of luring. The other charges were stayed. Because of his guilty plea, there will not be a trial. McKay will be sentenced at an upcoming hearing. A Winnipeg woman is warning people to be aware after she had a very unexpected house guest who snuck in behind her cat last night. This coyote pup ran into Cynthia Carr's home near the Assiniboine Forest and perched itself under a table in the dining room. Carr tells CBC the animal appeared docile, but she kept her distance until Manitoba Conservation arrived to help.
As soon as the conservation officer came in and got within kind of a foot of it, it reacted immediately, trying to bite. My walls are scratched now. It went from kind of a cute looking maybe puppy to absolutely a wild animal. And
recent wildlife activity within city limits has renewed calls to beware of coyotes and take precautions. Provincial officials have euthanized 5 coyotes since 2 children were attacked in the North Kildonan area last month. A Winnipeg couple had their morning errands interrupted yesterday by a hot air balloon. Take a look at this.
You need help?
Yeah. It happened in Norwood Flats in South St. Boniface. Mike Shetler and his wife were in their car when they spotted a balloon flying low near Nordale School. Shetler rolled down his window and asked the pilot if he needed a hand, and the pilot said yes. So Shetler and another man grabbed ropes and helped guide the balloon to a safe landing spot.
Surprising and unexpected. You come around the corner and here's this huge balloon skipping along the ground, and so it wasn't that much work, but it was very unusual and surprising, yeah.
Shetler says the pilot told him the balloon had been knocked off course by the wind. Sundance Balloons tells us there was no damage, equipment problems, or injuries, and says since hot air balloons can't be steered, pilots decide where to land based on space available and, of course, safety. Well, that certainly would have been quite a sight. And we have our weather specialist, Riley Lachek. And Riley, not a great day probably for hot air balloons today.
Today
My
might have been a
goodness.
good day to stay on the ground.
Yes.
Very active afternoon. We did see some tornado warnings, Brittany, earlier in the afternoon in parts of southeastern Manitoba. We can get right to that. We do have severe thunderstorm warnings still in place here for parts of eastern and southeastern Manitoba at this point. If we back up and take a look at the big picture here, you can see that we still have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a good chunk of the Red River Valley that has been lifted in the city of Winnipeg. We did see some storm activity earlier in the afternoon very quickly pass by, but you can still see we're still dealing with some severe and fairly intense storms through southeastern Manitoba and into northwestern Ontario. And you can look at this on Lightning Tracker. This is the cell here that produced that tornado warning in the Steinbach region down toward Piney and Sprague earlier in the afternoon. Downgraded now to a severe thunderstorm warning as it makes its way south of the border into Minnesota, into the International Falls region. We did see some severe weather moving through the Headingley, Eli region down toward Morris earlier in the afternoon as well, causing some heavy downpours on highways east and south of the city. The good news is this is all clear for the most part right now, but we also have a rainfall warning in place for Churchill. We could see up to 50 millimeters of rain along the Hudson Bay coast by the time we get to the end of the day Saturday. So you can see this is that storm activity here that we saw through the afternoon. Not a lot coming behind it aside from some sunnier skies, but this low pressure system, our next weather maker here that is bringing all of that rain to the Hudson Bay coast, will push southward into the Thompson region and eventually in the next couple days down into western Manitoba. Flin Flon, the Paw on tap for some rain as we get into the day on Friday. I'll show you that on Futurecast right now. You can see as we get overnight tonight, a lot of that instability clears out. We start the day with a mix of sun and cloud for most of southern Manitoba, some rain starting in central Manitoba, and that rain over the Hudson Bay coast as we get into early Friday morning. Into the afternoon, we start to see our clouds build in once again. Could see a few sprinkles, especially south of the Red River Valley or south portions of the Red River Valley into the later part of Friday afternoon. And some heavier rain through northern Manitoba as we get into the day on Saturday. That starts to move south through Saturday morning, and we start to see some of these bands of rain move into the city overnight Saturday into Sundays when we can expect the highest likelihood of some showers in the Winnipeg region. Timing that out for you, this takes us out 48 hours, and you can see not a lot of rain coming by supper time Saturday. For southern Manitoba, this will be Saturday into Sunday. For northern Manitoba, this is more like a Friday into Saturday event here, and you can see some of the highest amounts in the Thompson, Churchill, Gillam region with another 32 millimeters yet to come for Churchill as we get into the day on Saturday. So right now, 25 degrees in Morden, just 15 in Thompson. Tonight in Winnipeg, down to 13 degrees with clear breaks, 17 with sunny breaks in the morning, and a partly cloudy afternoon tomorrow. Windy again, winds picking up as we get into the afternoon. 11 degrees in Thompson. We have a chance of showers in northwestern Manitoba. Into southwestern Manitoba, we're at 23 tomorrow in Brandon, mainly sunny skies. The southeast, we're looking at mainly sunny skies as well, 26 along the international border. Northwestern Ontario as well. Still some lingering showers tonight. 22 tomorrow in Kenora, Brittany, and we have a little bit more rain in our forecast for the weekend. We'll talk about that when I come back.
All right, it was definitely a busy day for you.
Very busy day.
Thanks so much, Riley.
No problem.
Well, thousands of immigrants come to Canada each year. As newcomers, they face many challenges, from seeking employment to adjusting to a new school. An organization in Winnipeg is helping newcomer youth settle in a bit more easily. They offer educational and employment assistance programs, and that's how some youth are spending their summer break. CBC's Zubina Ahmed brings you the story.
Exploring future employment partnerships that you...
It's 11 a.m. and a group of newcomer youth are learning about employment opportunities in Canada. 21-year-old Piers Rita is learning about the skills to enter the Canadian job market.
I love Canada because good education and health.
Zarita came to Winnipeg as a refugee from Burundi in June last year with his aunt and cousins. As a newcomer, his first focus is finding a suitable job. He turned to the employment assistance class at NeedSync to get him ready.
They help me to how to make resume. They teach me about how I can do interview to find jobs.
NEEDS is a non-profit organization that supports immigrant and refugee youth through employment, education, and recreation programs.
And then really partnering with employers in the community that are looking to hire newcomers that have previous experience, or maybe building brand new experience if they're within the ages of 15 to 19 years old as well.
On average, nearly 2,000 newcomer kids enroll in NEEDS Inc. And they don't just focus on employment assistance, but also on educational programs.
Sprite and Sprite.
Down the hall, kids are learning about different types of food. They also have classes for English, maths, and computers. 10-year-old Makar Haduk from Ukraine has been studying in NEEDS for a week. After coming from a war-torn country, Haduk wants to improve his English and is interested in math, biology, and animals.
He told me that he learned about Canadian money, especially coins. They were very unfamiliar to him.
NEEDS education program is basically a school preparedness program for newly arrived children. They have 4 classrooms on site with 50 to 60 kids each day.
But now I don't feel nervous because they teach me many things.
For youth like Zorita and Haduk, NEEDS programs are helping them integrate into Canadian culture and feel at home. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Coming up, they used to be a common sight in many households, but are these vintage pianos cherished heirlooms or relics of days gone by? CBC explores the end of an era for the family piano after the break. They're family heirlooms, cherished musical instruments, and they used to be the centerpiece of the home. But these days, a large number of pianos go unwanted. As the CBC's Janice Moeller reports, an alarming number are ending up having to be destroyed. And a warning, if you're a music lover, you might find this hard to watch.
Just give it a good push.
Martin Winiarski has done this too often for his liking. In minutes, a piano that lived in a Manitoba cabin for decades is just a pile of rubble. In the 3.5 years he has owned Piano Movers Winnipeg, Winiarski has gotten about 135 pianos for disposal. The owners just can't keep them. He sells the ones that are in good shape. He's given away 30 or 40 to charity, but he figures he has had to destroy about 65 pianos.
Either the piano is too expensive to fix, people inherited it with the house when they buy their house, or they're moving out of town or out of province, and it's too cost prohibitive to move the piano. So most of the time the piano is it's too old and it's too expensive to repair.
About a quarter of his business is people giving away their instruments, and that can be hard to do.
Oh, I've had many tears. I've had to get some hugs before, and oh yeah, I've had some very sentimental pianos where they had their piano in the family for 80 years.
Daily, there are ads for free pianos on sites like Facebook Marketplace. Most are old wooden uprights. That's what Jenna Warrener was trying to unload with this ad. The piano came with the house she and her partner bought near Grand Beach. She figured it would be easy to get rid of.
I reached out to an antique dealer because it's from 1921. It's Canadian made. It was a beautiful instrument. We reached out to some schools. I talked to some people with connections at churches. I listed it in different online marketplaces multiple times. We spoke to our entire network of friends and family. That we tried really hard to send it off to a good home, and we couldn't find anyone that wanted it.
Not even when she offered to pay for the move. After 2 years, she and her partner dismantled the piano.
And I just broke down crying. Like, it felt like we were murderers. I feel like these are going to be relics of days gone by, where when I grew up, it was a given that a lot of our friends, like I said, we had one in the house. Lots of people had one in the house. It was normal. And then it slowly becomes a shelf, and it slowly becomes gets decorated at Christmas, or maybe you sing carols at Christmas around it, and then it gets closed, and then it goes out of tune, and they just sort of get left behind.
Jay Taylor is tuning the kind of piano people want nowadays, shiny and black. Most of the free pianos up for grabs are heavy wooden uprights and about 100 years old. And Taylor says a piano has a shelf life.
Wood over time just, deteriorates, glues deteriorate. Pianos are under tons and tons of pressure, so over time that tension on the instrument can cause problems.
Taylor says if that wood has a lot of cracks and there is rust inside the piano or a lot of wear on the hammers, it may need repairs, which can cost thousands of dollars. Add a couple of hundred for tuning and about $300 depending on where you have to move it, and a free piano doesn't sound like such a good bargain. But over at Nayla Suleiman's house, the 13-year-old has gotten a lot from her free piano. A neighbor gave it to her after her mom died because she already had a piano, so the family heirloom moved in next door.
Piano's helping me to study more, because when you're doing piano, you have to know the notes and know the keys. You got lots of discipline.
Nayla has already had a piano recital. It's made her more interested in music-related programs at school. She doesn't even have to be nagged to practice. Martin Winiarski wishes there were more people like Nayla. Sadly, he says it's getting easier to smash these instruments up now that he's done it so many times.
Almost shed a tear every time. It's a little emotional, This is 100 years of history, and people got a lot of enjoyment out of it, so it's a shame.
Janice Moeller, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, that was Janice's very last story with us here at CBC. After 31 years, to the day she's retiring.
Today was her last day with us here. Thank you for all of the wonderful stories you brought the province, your advice, guidance, and making us all better journalists and better people here in the newsroom over the years. Janice, we wish you well.
And she's going to have some extra time to maybe learn how to play the piano now.
More time to play the piano.
She can rescue one of those. Well, all the best, Janice. We need to take a quick break. Still to come, Riley will be back with our weekend weather look ahead. Stay with us.
Here's a look at the radar once again. Severe thunderstorm warnings in Manitoba have all ended. Still a watch, though, in the southeastern corner of the province. This area of thunderstorms has moved south of the border. We still do have this morning, though, in the Kenora area right now, seeing some heavy pockets of rain. 7-day forecast looks like this. We're looking like we're going to see some showers overnight Saturday into Sunday. Bit of a cooler weekend, and then we start to see things warming up a bit again as we get into next week. 26 degrees on the way for Tuesday. We have another chance of some showers, maybe some thunderstorms into the day on Wednesday, and Thursday's looking like a fairly nice day as well with a high of 25 degrees.
Some surprise visitors made quite the splash off the coast of Vancouver Island recently. Here's your daily lift.
baby.
A pod of orcas swam surprisingly close to the pier here, and it left onlookers in awe, especially because the pod contained a calf.
It's adorable. It's not typical for orcas to bring their young so close to shore. More than 100 people got to enjoy the rare moment. I love that. It warms my West Coast heart. I love orcas.
Look really cute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for us here tonight. We hope you have a wonderful evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.